Parents found out I own a beachfront villa, demand I hand it over to my sister. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get it off my chest. The past few months have been absolutely insane, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. It all started when my grandmother passed away last year. We were incredibly close. She practically raised me while my parents were busy fawning over my younger sister Molly. Growing up, the favoritism was always obvious. Molly got the newest clothes, the best toys, and all the attention, while I learned to be independent and self-sufficient. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but our parents' blatant preferential treatment created a weird dynamic between us. I focused on my education and career, while Molly became increasingly entitled, expecting everything to be handed to her. My grandmother saw all of this. She was the only one who truly supported me, encouraged my dreams, and taught me the value of hard work. When she passed away, I was devastated. The reading of her will was scheduled for a month after her funeral, but I honestly wasn't expecting much. I knew she had some properties, but I figured everything would be split equally between her grandchildren. Boy, was I wrong. It turns out my grandmother owned a gorgeous beachfront villa in Florida, valued at around $2.8 million. And she left it entirely to me. The lawyer explained that she had specifically mentioned in her will that she wanted me to have it because she believed I would appreciate its value and maintain its legacy. Molly got some jewelry and a modest sum of money, while I got the villa. I was stunned. The property was absolutely beautiful. 3 bedrooms, a private beach access, and recently renovated. I had visited it a few times with my grandmother during summer vacations, but I never imagined she'd leave it to me. I spent the next few months getting everything in order, paying the property taxes, and learning about maintenance requirements. I even started making plans to rent it out during peak seasons to generate some extra income. Everything was going great until my parents found out about it. You see, I hadn't told them about the inheritance immediately because I knew how they'd react. They discovered it when they were planning a family vacation and somehow came across the property records online. The phone call I received from my mother was explosive. "How dare you keep this from us?" she screamed into the phone. "Your sister just got engaged and she's been dreaming of a beachfront wedding. You need to sign the villa over to her immediately." I was taken aback. "Mom, this is my inheritance from Grandma. She specifically left it to me." "Don't be selfish," she snapped. "Molly needs it more than you do. She's starting a family, and you're still single. What do you need a huge villa for?" My father got on the line next. "Listen here, young lady. Your sister has always had bigger dreams than you. She deserves this property. You can still visit whenever you want, but it should be in her name." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad, I'm not giving away my property. Grandma left it to me for a reason, and I intend to honor her wishes." The conversation devolved from there. My parents started bringing up every sacrifice they'd supposedly made for me, which was news to me, how I owed the family, and how I was being incredibly selfish. They even tried to guilt-trip me by saying my grandmother would be disappointed in my behavior, which was rich, considering she specifically left the villa to me. Then came the text messages from Molly. "OMG, I can't believe you're being such a BTC about this. I'm getting married, and this would be perfect for the wedding and as our first home. Mom and Dad always taught us to share. You're just jealous because I found love and you're still alone." I blocked her number after that message. But the drama was far from over. My parents started calling other family members, telling them how I was tearing the family apart with my selfishness. Some relatives actually took their side, sending me messages about how family should come first and how I should be more generous. But here's where it gets even crazier. Last week, I received a letter from a lawyer representing my parents and sister. They were actually trying to contest the will, claiming that my grandmother wasn't of sound mind when she made her decision, and that I had somehow manipulated her into leaving me the property. I was furious. Not only were they trying to steal my inheritance, but they were also attempting to tarnish my relationship with my grandmother. I immediately contacted the lawyer who had handled my grandmother's will and explained the situation. Fortunately, my grandmother had anticipated something like this might happen. She had included a video recording with her will, explicitly stating her reasons for leaving the villa to me. She talked about how proud she was of my independence, how she'd watched me work hard while my sister was spoiled, and how she trusted me to preserve the property's value. The lawyer assured me that their case had no merit, but recommended I take some precautionary steps. I hired a security company to install cameras at the villa after my mother hinted that they might visit the property to see what condition it's in. I also documented all their harassment and kept copies of every threatening message. Things escalated when my parents and Molly actually showed up at the villa one weekend. I wasn't there, but my security cameras caught them trying to access the property. They had brought along Molly's fiancé and his parents, apparently planning to show them their future home. When they couldn't get in, my mother had a complete meltdown on camera, screaming about how ungrateful I was and how I was ruining Molly's perfect wedding plans. I had to file a restraining order after that incident. The judge was sympathetic, especially after seeing the video evidence and reading through the threatening messages. My parents and Molly were legally barred from approaching the property or contacting me about it. But they weren't done yet. They started posting on social media, sharing a completely twisted version of events. According to them, I had manipulated my elderly grandmother, stolen their rightful inheritance, and was now refusing to help my sister have her dream wedding. Some distant relatives and family friends actually believed them and started harassing me online. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I made a detailed post on social media, sharing the truth about everything, including screenshots of their threatening messages, the security camera footage of their attempted break-in, and most importantly, parts of my grandmother's video testimony, with my lawyer's approval. I explained how they had always favored Molly, how my grandmother had been of completely sound mind when she made her decision, and how they were now trying to bully me into giving up my rightful inheritance. The response was overwhelming. People who had initially sided with my parents started reaching out to apologize. Several family members shared similar stories of how my parents had always favored Molly and tried to manipulate situations in her favor. Even Molly's fiancé's parents contacted me privately to say they were appalled by my family's behavior and were beginning to have second thoughts about the wedding. Molly's fiancé apparently had no idea about the extent of their actions and was particularly disturbed by the attempted break-in. He called me personally to apologize and admitted that Molly had always been spoiled by our parents, but he'd never seen this side of her before. Last I heard, they're in couples counseling, and the wedding has been postponed. My parents finally got the message when their lawyer informed them that if they continued their harassment, they could face serious legal consequences. The restraining order was ironclad, and their attempts to contest the will had only succeeded in wasting their money on legal fees. It's been a few weeks since everything died down. The villa is doing great. I've successfully rented it out for several weeks during the upcoming tourist season, and the income will more than cover the maintenance costs. I've made some wonderful improvements to the property, just as my grandmother would have wanted. I've also started therapy to deal with all the family drama, and have realized just how toxic my family's behavior has been throughout my life. The therapist is helping me set healthy boundaries and process the guilt that my parents tried to instill in me. Several of my grandmother's old friends have reached out to tell me how proud she would be of how I handled everything. They shared stories about how she would often talk about my strength and integrity, and how she knew I was the right person to entrust with her beloved villa. As for my family, my parents finally sent a formal apology through their lawyer, probably more to avoid further legal troubles than out of genuine remorse. Molly is apparently still angry, but has stopped trying to contact me. Her fiancé follows me on social media now and occasionally likes my posts about the villa's renovations, which I find quietly satisfying. I've learned a lot through this experience. Standing up to family isn't easy, especially when they try to manipulate you emotionally. But my grandmother taught me the importance of self-respect and standing up for what's right. I won't let anyone bully me into giving up what's rightfully mine, no matter who they are. The villa has become more than just a property to me. It's a symbol of my grandmother's love and faith in me, and a reminder that I'm stronger than I sometimes think. I've started a tradition of hosting some of my grandmother's old friends there during the off-season, sharing memories of her and maintaining the warm, welcoming atmosphere she always created. Looking back, I'm grateful for how everything turned out. Yes, it was stressful and emotionally draining, but it helped me break free from toxic family dynamics and stand up for myself. The experience has taught me who my real friends are and shown me that I'm capable of handling whatever life throws my way. As for the villa, it's thriving under my care just as my grandmother knew it would. Every improvement I make to the property, every positive review from rental guests, and every peaceful moment I spend there feels like a tribute to her memory. She didn't just leave me a property, she left me a legacy of strength, independence, and self-respect. And no amount of family drama can take that away from me. Update, 6 months later. I wanted to share an update because quite a bit has happened since my last post, and I think it's important to let people know how things turned out. First, the good news. The villa is doing amazingly well. The rental business has exceeded all expectations, and I've managed to build a great relationship with a local property management company that handles the day-to-day operations. I've even started a small scholarship fund with some of the rental income, helping local students pursue their education, something my grandmother would have loved. Now for the family drama update. Molly's wedding did eventually happen, but not quite as she had planned. After my previous post went viral in our extended family circle, several uncomfortable truths came to light. It turns out I wasn't the only one who had experienced my parents' manipulative behavior over the years. My mother's sister reached out to me privately and shared how my parents had tried similar tactics with her years ago over some family heirlooms. This sparked a larger conversation within the extended family about patterns of behavior that had been ignored or excused for too long. The increased scrutiny and family discussions led to some unexpected developments. Molly's fiancé's parents insisted on a prenuptial agreement, which caused a huge blow-up between Molly and her fiancé. They eventually worked through it in couples therapy, but it forced Molly to confront some uncomfortable truths about her own entitled behavior. The wedding ended up being a much smaller affair at a local venue, rather than the extravagant beachfront ceremony she'd demanded. I wasn't invited, which was fine by me, but I heard from cousins who attended that it was noticeably subdued. Apparently, several guests had declined to attend after learning about how they'd treated me, which was a major embarrassment for my parents. Speaking of my parents, they've made several attempts to reconcile, all of which conveniently coincided with them wanting something. First, they tried to convince mutual friends to tell me they were dying to host a family reunion at the villa. Then they attempted to book it through my rental management company using a different name. The company knew about the situation and alerted me immediately. Their latest scheme was particularly bold. They created a fake social media profile pretending to be an interested renter, trying to gather information about the property's availability and security measures. Unfortunately for them, their technical skills weren't quite up to par. They forgot to log out of my mother's account before sending me a message from the fake profile. The property management company's lawyer sent them a cease and desist letter after that incident. The restraining order is still in place, and now I have even more documentation of their attempts to circumvent it. My lawyer assured me that if they continue, we can pursue additional legal action. Molly's new husband reached out to me recently with an interesting revelation. Apparently, my parents had promised them they would handle everything and get the villa for their wedding, even before confronting me about it. They had already started planning and making arrangements, assuming they could bully or manipulate me into compliance. When their plan failed, they had to scramble to explain to his family why their promises fell through, which led to some very uncomfortable conversations. On a more positive note, I found an unexpected silver lining in all of this. The experience has helped me build stronger relationships with family members I had previously kept at a distance, thinking they shared my parents' views. Several cousins have visited the villa. As paying guests, I maintain clear boundaries, and we've been able to share stories and heal some old wounds. I've also started a blog documenting the villa's renovation projects and rental journey, partly as therapy and partly to help others who might be managing similar properties. It's become quite popular, and I've connected with a wonderful community of people who have faced similar family situations or are interested in property management. My grandmother's old friends continue to be an amazing support system. One of them recently shared a journal my grandmother had kept, which included entries about her decision to leave me the villa. Reading her words about how she had watched me grow into a strong, independent person brought me to tears. She had noticed everything: how I handled the family dynamics, how I built my own life despite the lack of support, and how I never let their favoritism break my spirit. The journal also revealed something interesting. My grandmother had actually considered leaving the villa to my parents initially, but changed her mind after observing how they handled other family matters. She wrote about her concerns that they would either sell it immediately or use it as another tool for manipulation. Reading this confirmed that she had made her decision with complete clarity and forethought. As for my current relationship with my immediate family, well, there isn't one, and I'm at peace with that. The past 6 months of distance have been incredibly healing. My therapist helped me understand that while forgiveness might be possible someday, it doesn't have to include reconciliation or giving them another opportunity to hurt me. The villa continues to be my safe haven. I've made it my tradition to spend my grandmother's birthday there each year, often joined by her old friends who share wonderful stories about her life. The property is flourishing, the business is successful, and most importantly, I know I honored my grandmother's wishes by standing firm against the manipulation and entitlement. To anyone dealing with similar family dynamics or inheritance disputes, stand your ground. Your peace of mind and self-respect are worth more than any attempt to keep the peace by giving in to unreasonable demands. Sometimes the family we choose is more valuable than the family we're born into. The villa stands as a testament to that truth and to my grandmother's wisdom in recognizing it long before I did. Final update 1 year later. It's been exactly 1 year since my last update, and I felt it was time to share the final chapter of this story. So much has changed, and I think it's important to show how standing your ground can lead to positive transformations, even in the most difficult family situations. The biggest news first: Molly's marriage ended after just 8 months. The prenup that caused so much drama turned out to be crucial because her husband filed for divorce after discovering she had been secretly taking money from their joint accounts to give to our parents. They had apparently convinced her to help them after some bad investments left them in financial trouble. The divorce proceedings revealed that my parents had been struggling financially for years, mostly due to their attempts to maintain an appearance of wealth and their habit of bailing Molly out of her money problems. This explained their desperate attempts to get their hands on the villa. They saw it as their financial salvation. Molly's ex-husband's lawyer contacted me during the divorce proceedings, asking if I would provide testimony about my parents' pattern of financial manipulation. I agreed, and my documentation of their behavior around the villa inheritance proved invaluable. The prenup held up in court, largely thanks to the evidence of Molly's financial deceptions. But here's where things got interesting. After the divorce, Molly did something I never expected. She reached out to me through her therapist, asking if I would consider meeting with them in a supervised session. After discussing it with my own therapist, I agreed. The session was intense. Molly broke down and admitted that our parents had been manipulating her just as much as they had tried to manipulate me, just in different ways. They had made her dependent on them by always solving her problems, while simultaneously using that dependency to control her. The divorce had finally opened her eyes to the toxic dynamics at play. "I always thought you were the difficult one," she said during our session, "but now I realize you were just the only one strong enough to say no to them. I'm sorry it took me losing everything to understand that." While I appreciated her insight, I made it clear that understanding didn't automatically fix everything. We're taking small steps toward building a different kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than the old family dynamics. She's now in intensive therapy, working on her codependency issues, and has started taking financial management classes. As for my parents, their situation deteriorated further. After Molly's divorce revelations, several family members came forward with stories of borrowed money that was never repaid and promises that were never kept. It turned out they had been playing a complex shell game with family funds for years, always robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. They finally had to sell their house and move into a modest apartment. The experience seems to have humbled them somewhat, but old habits die hard. They attempted to contact me again, this time through their financial advisor, suggesting that I could help the whole family by taking out a home equity loan on the villa to tide everyone over. My response was simple and direct. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, who reminded them that the restraining order was still in effect, and that attempting to pressure me for financial gain could result in legal consequences. The villa itself has become more successful than I ever imagined. The blog I started has turned into a full-fledged business consultation service, where I help other inheritance property owners navigate both the practical and emotional aspects of managing family properties. I've even been invited to speak at several real estate investment conferences about dealing with family property disputes. The scholarship fund I started has now helped 4 local students begin their college education. One of them is actually studying property law, inspired by my story which she read about in the local paper. She's interning with my lawyer's firm this summer. I've also found love, though not in the way my parents always pushed for. I met Alex, a contractor who helped with some of the villa renovations, and we connected over our shared experiences with family business complications. He understands boundaries and respect in a way that's refreshing, and his support during the ongoing family situation has been invaluable. Some of my grandmother's old friends have become like family to me. We still meet regularly at the villa, and they've shared even more stories about my grandmother that help me understand why she made the choices she did. One of them recently gave me a box of old photographs she'd found, including several of my grandmother and me working in the villa's garden when I was young. Those moments meant more than any inheritance could. The property has become something of a safe haven for other family members dealing with similar situations. My cousins who supported me during the initial drama often visit, and we've created our own traditions that have nothing to do with the toxic patterns of the past. Last Christmas, we hosted a family gathering that was drama-free and actually enjoyable, something I wouldn't have thought possible 2 years ago. I've also started mentoring other people going through similar inheritance disputes. The number of messages I've received from people facing pressure to give up their inheritances to more deserving family members is staggering. Being able to help them stand their ground and maintain their boundaries has been incredibly fulfilling. Molly has made some progress in her personal growth. She's now working as an administrative assistant, her first real job, and living within her means for the first time in her life. While we're not close, we have a civil relationship. She recently sent me a birthday card that simply said, "Thank you for showing me there's another way to live." It wasn't much, but it was honest, and that's worth something. Last month, I received an unexpected package from my grandmother's lawyer. He had been instructed to give it to me 2 years after her death. Inside was a letter she had written, along with some old family documents. The letter read in part, "My dearest granddaughter, if you're reading this, you've probably already faced some challenges over the villa. I knew our family's patterns well enough to expect that. But I also knew you were the only one strong enough to break those patterns. The villa isn't just a property. It's a chance to show that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I'm trusting you with it because you understand that wealth isn't about money. It's about the strength to manage it wisely and the heart to use it well." Reading her words, I finally felt complete closure about everything that had happened. She hadn't just left me a valuable property, she'd given me the opportunity to break free from toxic family patterns and create something positive. The villa's guest book is now filled with messages from people who have found peace and joy here. Families who have made happy memories, couples who have celebrated their love, and individuals who have found solace in its peaceful atmosphere. This is exactly what my grandmother would have wanted. I recently installed a small plaque in the villa's garden, my grandmother's favorite spot. It reads, "Legacy is not about what we leave behind, but about the strength we inspire in others." Every time I see it, I'm reminded that standing firm against manipulation and entitlement wasn't just about keeping a property, it was about honoring the true meaning of family legacy. My story has become something of a cautionary tale in our extended family circle, but not in the way my parents intended. Instead, it sparked important conversations about entitlement, boundaries, and the true meaning of family support. Several younger cousins have told me that watching me stand my ground gave them the courage to make their own tough decisions about boundaries with family. As I write this final update, I'm sitting in my grandmother's favorite spot in the villa's garden. The property is thriving, the business is successful, and most importantly, I'm at peace with all the decisions I've made. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is simply stand your ground and let time reveal the truth. To everyone who supported me through this journey, and to those who are facing similar battles, thank you. Remember that you don't owe anyone your inheritance, your boundaries, or your self-respect. True family supports your growth, celebrates your success, and respects your decisions. The villa remains my sanctuary, my success story, and my reminder that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. My grandmother knew that all along, and now, finally, so do I.